Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Cecilia Martinez, and this is our third and final edition of Decoded Road to One. One is right around the corner, and I know that I'm all excited and fired up for it, and I hope that you are too. We are in the final stretch, and this is your last chance to register for the conference. So make sure that you don't miss out on all the sessions, the activities, and of course, all of your favorite OutSystems and Neo swag that's up for grabs. To make sure that you have an amazing experience, we do have our One Conference app available to you. You'll be able to check the calendar, participate in games and contests, and everything else that we have going on available for you. You'll have an even better experience if you use the conference app at One, so make sure to check that out. Now, let's dig into our session. We're joined today by Fábio Fantato with an insightful presentation focusing on the adoption of OutSystems Developer Cloud, or ODC. This migration topic is something that is on the minds of a lot of OutSystems developers, and so we're excited to have Fábio here today. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Cecilia. Welcome to the session. ODC has been done the buzzword most common in the last 3 years in the OutSystems community. And today, we'll talk a bit more about the journey to adoption and migration. But before we start, I'd like to do something different and make a bet with all of you. I bet that I know what we did here last summer. I know we have the internet between us. It's not a live session, but I can do it. I can read your minds, and I know what you did. Let's try to get your minds, reading really your thoughts. And okay, I'm ready to go. I bet you spend your time doing a lot of ODC exercise, practicing the learning material, doing a lot of funny projects, and migrate your business projects also. Okay, I lose this one. Probably you spend your time with your family, your friends, watching series, whatever. But I have a second bet. And this time I will be the winner. I put all my coins on that. And why I know that? Because I felt the same. I bet that I know how was your feelings when you first heard ODC for the first time. But probably you are asking yourselves, who is this guy who pretends to know about my feelings? I'm Fábio Fantato. I'm a solution architect at Valantic in Lisbon, and I've worked with 30 years with IT, less of 13 them with OutSystems. And in the last 3 years, I spent a long time practicing ODC since the first early access program, since the beginning, helping the R&D to improve the product and release the current version. So we exercise a lot the things, and I will share with you what was my path and my journey with ODC. And to do that, first I will win the bet talking about the emotional journey, something about a digital transformation needs to start adopting ODC, how to empower your teams with knowledge and support, a bit more about the patterns and practices, some lessons learned, and finally about the migration path. So let's start. It's time to win my bet. How was your feelings when you first heard ODC for the first time? First, we have an excitement about the innovation, the possibilities, everything I ever dreamed of. Finally, we have containers. It's a modern cloud services. It's amazing, everything I ever dreamed. But when we start to put our hands on ODC, we have some fear about the risks, the uncertainty, a new mindset, new learning path, learning curve, migration challenges. So I quite fear here. And we'll go through to the finally acceptance. It's time to do a real world experimentation. Trust in the future, mitigating the risks, and define the best practices. We are early adopters, so we need to define the practice and find the best way to work with ODC. And to do that, we need to think in a digital transformation in three different perspectives: a technical one, a business, and an infrastructure modernization. From the technical side, we have some changes to keep in our minds. New tools, new patterns, new mindset, a full service oriented, and early stage in some areas. In the beginning, okay, we need to find the best features, the best way to do the things. But this brings some challenges. Missing API for user management for yet, missing forged assets because they are being migrated by the teams, by the community. We need to think about the code migration, data migration, and in the coexistence between O11 and ODC. And how to mitigate that. We need to think in training programs, invest on that, phased rollouts, and new and enhanced guide of best practices. This is very important for all of us. And also in a migration assessment, this is very important to think about the timeline for our projects with low costs. In the business perspective, what is the impact we need to think about? So we have some changes also. Fast time to market, cost efficiency, best abstraction of concepts, and scalability and safety by nature. And this brings also challenges. A mindset shift, a ROI measurement that need to be thinking about, a portfolio migration. We have a legacy, a large legacy to think in how to put on ODC and how to mitigate that using case of studies, KPI tracking, and a robust feasibility plan. From the infrastructure modernization side, we have to think about scalability, the security by design, easy maintenance, cloud-oriented, and these bring challenges on data migration, integration with existing systems, and fear about the missing expertise in cloud services. But you have mitigations also with using robust migration tools, expert consultations to help us on the cloud services that are missing in-house, a full assessment in our applications, in our infrastructure to make sure they are ready to migrate, and a robust migration plan. This is the key, okay? So, how to empower our teams to do that? I can share with you our use case. During this time using ODC, we compile a lot of patterns and guides from different sources, from the OutSystems guidelines, documentation, and for our lessons learned in a single material to provide patterns, recommendations, and organize this in a Figma file, okay? But you can do this from your own way. It's very important to compile those things to make sure that you will be able to share with your developers the best practices you have. It's important to define your own way. This is only one. It's how we deal with this, but you can do by yourselves, okay? Compile the material, define what works or not for your company. And this is very important because you can keep our material from OutSystems and the extended partners you find around the world, around the community, and define naming conventions, symbols, diagrams, recommendations, and put all that together to help you, your team, and your projects. It's very important to think that it is our responsibility as early adopters to define these practices, is you can't wait for the best practices come out. We need to go and create them. And you need your help to do that. Try, exercise the things, and help us to define the practices, what works or not in this new technology. So about the patterns, now it's time to think about what you discover on that. I bring here some patterns from the OutSystems material, and I will extend them with some lessons learned we have. But you have a lot of them on the site, on the Learn site, and you can extend your training looking for this material. The first one, we can talk about the theme and patterns. Theme and patterns can be okay. I already know how to do that. It's the same from our level. Yeah, I agree with you. But here we have libraries. Libraries can be agnostic to teams, can be agnostic to business. So it's important to use the power of the libraries and share your themes and patterns across our applications. Not only about the reuse of them, but it's very important to think about. Remember, probably you know that in ODC, applications run inside containers, and libraries are packaged inside that. So if you think about it, the browser needs to cache those things to display to your end users. And when you do that in different containers, in different applications, every time you load an application 1 or application 2, the browser needs to cache them. And you have loading time, a higher loading time for both applications to do transitions between them. So it's very important to think small and create a good segregation about your base scene and your patterns and keep them smaller with only the pieces that you need for your applications. So you can keep them small and working for every scenario. And we can think this and extend the same inheritance. So still think small, keeping your base team and specialize them for your use cases. Start with them using common CSS, OutSystems UI as reference for you. You can extend the patterns and use a lot of patterns already created for that and tested by OutSystems. And when you create your base scene, you can override the CSS for only the context that you need. Okay? So, but okay, scene it's fine for us. We can think about integrations. And when you think about integrations, we can also use the power of the libraries and think in black box approach. You can have our connectors only connecting with APIs, SDKs, or something in asynchronous communication, doing almost real-time data, communicating with your applications and get data at the exact time I do the request. But this brings some strong dependencies for our applications. We are using server actions here, so our applications will be connected directly to that. But this make this good candidates to be forge components for the assets and can be published and shared with all of them. There is no business rules inside the libraries. It's a main rule for that. Don't put business. It's agnostic, okay? Keep this in your mind. And hide the original structure. Does not make strong dependency with that. Imagine you create some connectors with a Jira or something like that that changes a lot. This can be very complicated, okay? So think in this when you create your direct integrations libraries for your connectors. And also provide setting configurations to be reused for our different applications, only change some small things for that. And here an example about what I said. If you are creating a Google Drive integration, you can have your own server actions, your own public structures, and not exactly the same what you have from the APIs. You can create your own signature that will make less impact on the applications that are consuming them. Okay? So this is very important to keep in your mind. The next one, you need to integrate with external systems using cache. Imagine scenarios where you have an ERP and you need to have an entity for your employees. Probably you have a local copy of them to not go every time, all the time to the ERP to get their data. So it's very important to us to think that create an entity in your application and a timer to synchronize the information to that. You will provide that good code cache and exactly on the application that needs the data. Okay, and this can be shared between different applications in the OutSystems side. But okay, the owner of this data can be stored them locally. But if you need this in a real time, you can extend this pattern and provide an API to trigger your on-timer as needed. So in the ERP side, you can trigger this API and okay, I will synchronize again as soon as the data was updated. So this is near real-time cache that you can do and OutSystems using this pattern. Okay, you can go for a transparent service. Imagine you have different ways to do the same things. In this case, a notification. You can call Slack, Teams, Google Chat, email, a lot of them. But for me, for the business, it's only a notification. And whatever, the way we do that is not important to us at that moment. You have different implementations, but I can have a single point to everyone consume that. So it's a single service abstraction. It's an easier implementation. But I've seen things here. So if I need a new connector with this, Skype, Google Chat, I can add new libraries and improve my implementation. It's less consumer impact because you have only one single signature to be consumer, uniformize the APIs, and you request the routing to the right library when you need to call notifications. But this can be a problem. Sometimes we need more. We need to do something about the notification I'm changing. Imagine I need to have a history, a log, an audit from our services. So one strategy that we can do for that is change the library to apps and use this to store entities and store our data in this application. So it's very similar to the other one, but in this case, they have independent runtime. We can have the same structures, but using the database entities. And if you need to do new services and add new type of applications, it's only need to add the libraries into the applications and it will be useful for any application that you have on that one. So it's more a microservice transparent. Okay, it's very important to think about. And the next one, when you think about the data, how to share data between our applications. The most common use case is the single one, is when you have entities within data that does not change a lot. So you can use public entities and share between them. This will be useful by any application. It's lower development efforts because, okay, it's shared, it can use in an aggregates, I can reference them directly. It's very easy to use. And it's good to use when you have data that does not change a lot. Imagine this is use case. Countries and city does not have appears from one day to another. So the change can change only once a year, 5 years, I don't know. It's okay to be shared for everyone. The model doesn't change a lot. But when you involve data from our business, we need to think a bit more. Okay, you can do the same. It's easy to consume them, reduce the efforts, but this can be done only in information data that has low change pace. Imagine here I have suppliers, name, address, contact info. This not changes a lot along your business. So it's okay to do in this way because it's only the data, only the plain data that we share between them. And this helps a lot. There is no complex rules. Remember that. This is the key. But if I have complex data in our information, imagine here I have headers for my invoice, items, payments. Maybe these can change a lot along the process, along the business, and different applications can consume different things. So it's even more complex than the previous one. And here, if I use public entities, probably I will have a problem because every time I change the bin, our application here in the bottom, I need to refactor the other ones because they are strongly connected with these entities, with this model for these entities. This does not break the application, but the logic can be broken and is a risk for some business. So if you have business roles involved and changes may change a lot, you need to think in another way. We need to avoid this impact and change the way you're consuming this method. And how you can do that? You can do that using a different approach, exposing a service action with structures only prepared to be shared with our applications. So in this case, we encapsulate the things and avoid to connect direct or data. You can use them in a better way. It's a good abstraction from the complexity you have on the bottom layers. So now you can have your business rules centralized in a single place and with low impact in our applications on the top. So it's very important when you do that, define clearly the ownership for that. Okay? And optimize the output data. I don't need everything that I have on the devices. I only need that context for our applications. And what the next one? There's, as I said before, we have a lot of other patterns. I will not cover all them here because I don't have time. So some of them that's very important. The distributed transaction patterns. Go to the OutSystems Learn and discover more about them. Investigate them and try to use in your use cases. Okay. So let's move it a bit. Now, talking about the lessons learned you have from OEC. To do that, I will share with you the use case you have since the beginning when we started the early access. And here we have an internal tool to set the rules, patterns for our project reviews. All projects you have in the company, we have a score. We map them with the iMentor Studio, do an integration, and kept some information about them, trying to centralize the score for our solutions architects and teams. And this tool was created in 11, and we started to do a migration this to ODC. First, we started this manually, even before OutSystems provided us automatic tools to help us in this process. So we spent 30 days in efforts to migrate this with no assistance, okay, from scratch. And in 6 months in time, because it's only one developer for 15% of the time, learning on the C, trying, reviewing the things. So this was the case for this scenario. A comparison, this project has 165 AOs, and we have some challenge here about our data migration. We need to use some custom APIs from the 11 side to expose the data and to be consumed in AAS side. Our UX in UI was revamped also. It's only to be better. It's not mandatory, but we'll use this time to do that and have some integrations with challenge for us. Mentor Studio, Google Chat. So we need to create components in the Forge to provide the connection with that. Okay, and how was our idea here? This is the architecture that you have when you start from ULM. We have different applications, several models. Okay, we are using domain-driven here, but it's hard to maintain ULM using this approach. So when you heard UDC, okay, let's do it. Let's moving forward and try to do the same on the other side. Our first scenario were this one. Well, was a theoretical proposal using the landscape suggested by OutSystems just in the beginning, and you can see that you reduce a lot the number of applications, the number of connections and references. But here we have a problem. When we start to put this to work, we think, okay, project and advisor cannot be different domains, can be included into a single one because it's dependent between them, so it's okay. And we create a permission layer to help us to be more granular with the things. Oh, okay, this is reasonable. It's okay for us. But when we move forward and start to test this application, we find a problem. Remember I said about the team and patterns there running in different containers. Okay, when you run the different containers, all the code for your application will be loaded by your browser even before you started to show something. If you put everything in the same context, when you load your application for the first time, the time to the container be loaded into your browser will be higher. So the experience of the users can be compromised. And we'll decide to divide our application into ES, backoffice, and so on, and start to move the things to make easy to the end users as access the application and don't be a perceptive problem with the performance. Okay, and we're still working on this application. And now we see that it's not enough to do the same. So we rescue from the 4-layer canvas a small orchestration thing here. Okay, it's not the same. Okay, it's not a layer for that. It's only an application, very small, to start the login, the initial menu, the initial interface with our user, and calling the different parts of our application. And this is similar that the ODC portal does. You have an entry point at portal and change it between the context when you need. You don't need to have everything loaded in your browser at once. You can divide them between different contexts for your applications when the user needs them. Okay? So it's very important to think this in a live orchestration way. So this is our current architecture. The application well divided with the connectors, with the libraries, some core things here. Use the same color codes that you have from the 3-layer canvas. So it's to make easy the developer understand what happened here. Okay, this is our current map. And this brings us 2 more patterns that we can add to our context. Think in light orchestration apps. Keep only login, menu, dashboard on that, because they can be the entry point for your users and connect them to the right applications on the bottom. It's faster loading time and better user perception. Okay, this is very important to think about when you start with your ODC. And the next one was about permissions. Okay, OutSystems has a good permission layer. You have roles, groups. You can define your access directly in the portal. But sometimes in your application, you need more granularity about your features and your permissions that you need to expose in that application. And how you can do this and share between among our applications you have in our Office Street. We can create another application, we call it a permission layer, and put there all the structures available for you. The application, group permissions, the user, and extend the information you have from OutSystems to provide this. So each application you have in your structure, you can not only manage the permissions in a single place, but register the applications there. So you have a single point to manage that. And you can combine the built-in rules, your granular permissions in some actions to make sure that you are only doing the things properly for your user, for the group of users, and different applications, managed in a single place. So this is a good pattern to keep in mind when you start your applications. Okay? So, and now it's time to think about the future, the migration. When we start to think in our structures, we will solve two different paths. One, when you can do a one-shot migration, a small factor, 300 AOs maybe, you can do a turnkey at once. So you can create your applications, migrate them, and start in ODC, and it's okay. But in larger factories, you don't have the same. You need a coexistence path. So along the time, you reduce your applications and improve your ODC. And sometimes they need to work together. And to help you on that, OutSystems is releasing a migration kit that composes a lot of tools, guidelines, and best practices to help you on that. Okay? And this is very important to see this documentation, to exercise them, because you change a lot the concepts in ODC. We need to keep them in mind when you start our migration. And this migration can think about the common use cases, progress to more complex one, align with ODC capabilities that they are being released now. So it's important to keep this in mind. And you can divide it in 4 steps, starting with an assessment in our 11 portfolio, prepare our code in our 11, do the migration, and finally do the data migration. So this is important to think in these 4 steps. And our proposal to that, it's 3 main steps here. The first one is the assessment. When you map our applications, our assets, check the patterns, how to refactor them, how to do this in a new way, thinking about the 4 components that are missing. If everything is there, if you need to create one, it's okay, you can check it here. And thinking the gap. How can we mitigate the things? If it is a new component, I will do that. I will hire someone to do that. I need to think this in this step, this phase. Do a comparison. I need to create a new blueprint for the architecture, comparing O11 and ODC in planning for the next step, for the preparation step. When you do the timeline, create our scope, define what you will be migrated or not, if you are using the coexistence, if you are using the one shot, refactoring our architecture, put efforts to develop the forge assets that are missing, and UX refactor, okay, you can think about Sometimes it's important to change some things, but it's not mandatory. If only your company is prepared to do that. If it's time, imagine if you have a long system, 10 years old, and you need to reflect your things, this is the time to do that. And finally is the execution time. It's time to do the code migration, performing the migration, obviously, do asset management, think in feature integrations, what's possible or not. You can connect the things, think in the APIs and do the bridging about them if you need, and think about the data. You're using custom APIs, we're using automatically tools, assisted tools. Okay, it's time to think about test and validate the things. It's really important to us. Okay, and the patterns related to that. What I can do now in OutSystems, in O11, to prepare my code to be migrated in the future. I'm not ready to go to OC yet, but I can prepare my code, even now, even in O11 side. So I can identify the possible themes, integrations, common code, and define them and extract it in different applications. Remember that one app is one model in ODC. So divide them, separate them, even in your level. And you will starting to adapt your code to be prepared for the future. Okay? And not only about libraries, but you can do the same for the service actions. You can expose your strong dependencies only as service actions and reorganize your code to support that. You can make easier your process when you decide to go in this direction. Finally, we have also to think about SQL queries. Remember that in ODC, the database from that systems is Aurora Postgre. It's different from the O11 when you connect it directly with SQL Service. Okay, you can do this using external connections, but the main database is Postgre. And the syntax changes a lot. So map your queries, map your SQLs to make sure how many efforts you have when you decide to go to migration. And about the login flow, ODC uses OpenID connectors. It's a robust authentication flow, changes a bit the way are you creating users, are connecting users, using tokens to do that. So create your flow first. Go there, create the flows, the recover passwords, the emails, and whatever you need. And after, when you migrate, copy this to the new applications. For that, the login flows that you have from O11 for now, if it's possible. Sometimes you have complex ones, so you need to find an alternative to do that. So it's important to rewrite that. And in the case when you don't have the assets on the Forge, you couldn't migrate everything to that, define which will be the best way. If you hire something to help you on that, if you're recreating by your own efforts, and if you can find them on the Forge, it's a good place to go. And if some components are not enough to us, you can go to create your external logic. So I suggest this session that will be performed and one by Vitor Savalaggio, and he will talk a bit more about how to use a friendly web tool that we designed to help us in the process to create external code. Okay, this will be a great session. So what you have learned today? You saw a bit more about our journey with ODC, since the excitement, the fear, and acceptance. How important is the digital transformation, a real digital transformation inside our company? How to empower our teams to share the knowledge between the people that are working on our projects. And there are some lessons from the real world implementation, what works and what not works, and be ready to the future. So what you can do now, you can apply best practices, lead our team on this direction, execute a good migration to base on our next steps, now, our next uh, propositions, and embrace the future. It's time. We need to do this now to be ready to always. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much. That was amazing, Fabio. I really appreciate you sharing your insights with us. I do have some questions for you.
Okay.
The first question is, yeah, you mentioned many different patterns for preparing for the migration. What do you typically see as the most common challenge during this part of the process?
Okay. The most challenges for that was the change of the mind, thinking in only one application with one model and try to reduce the dependency between them. So this is the hardest one that you need to be prepared to work. It's a completely domain driven, and we are used to doing 11 things that meets the things, meets the contexts. And Odyssey doesn't allow us to do that. So we need to go in the right path mandatorily. It's required to go in the right path using the new architecture.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for that. And also, given all of your extensive experience that you have working with different types of versions of OutSystems, and what excites you the most about ODC for the future?
Um, I guess the most excitement about this is the capabilities you have to extend the things. The O11 was created on top of the best technology at the moment, but you have some limits where to go. And now this new architecture platform make us more capable to use a cloud services, use differently uh, different technologies and different things to do better the things that we did in the past. So I believe this will be a good improvement for all of us, especially on the architecture side, because you can create things that not only on top of the things and try to adjust the things there to work, but you can do it in the right way using the best practices and the best technology that you have today.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today to share all of your knowledge and insights. I really appreciate you talking about all the different migration steps and making sure that developers have a really manageable journey to ODC. Thank you again, Fabio.
Thank you everyone, and I hope you enjoyed it.
All right. Well, that is it for our last episode of Decoded Road to One. But the fun does not have to stop here. We will see you at one in October, coming up here very soon. And we will not only be joining you in person, but we will be joining you virtually as well. Yes. So Decoded will be live from one. We'll be live streaming interviews and other fun things for you to be experience one from home. So make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel to join in on the fun, and we will see you soon, whether in person or virtually.